Test. 1, 2, 3, test.
38 with my degree in economics. And got my commission for artillery.
Graduated from Tech.
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
Because it was military then. At Fort, we were one of the 2 or 3 largest military schools in the nation at that time. And there was nearly 4,000 cadets. 38, there was no such thing as recruiters coming to the campus looking for you. You got a job, you went out and drug sell. So there was only about 25 out of the 400 that had jobs. So most of us went into the Reserve Corps that summer to get our second lieutenant requirements out of the way, our training requirements, and to make a little money.
Yeah, did you go to SAMP or what?
Well, I went to ORC camp at Fort Monroe, Virginia. And when I got there in the physical, this Army doctor jammed his thumb in my right ear, and the jig was up. Because I've been deaf in my left ear since 1932, totally. And now for 38 years, I guess. 32, no, 58 years, I guess. Well, anyway, a long time. I woke up the mumps in 1932, the first day of March. Mumps here, and I haven't heard a sound out of that ear since. The swelling pinched the nerve off, according to the doctor. But anyway, they said, "Oh, well, that changes everything." What do you mean? Well, your commission will be taken away from you. I said, "Well, what do I do? Go home?" No. Nah, it'll be Christmas before you get the papers cleared, so this war we can't. So I did, and got a job. Okay, then I was discharged. And then about a year later, the war cloud looming, they started drafting. And my classmates, most of them were snapped up just like that, the first lieutenants and captains immediately. Well, there wasn't anything wrong with me. Hell, I could grab a 1,500-pound steer and throw him without even thinking anything about it. I was a whole lot more man when there was a lot less man. And, of course, I hadn't told anybody I was deaf as a doorknob. And I remember one of the farmers that I worked with very closely lost 2 sons in Baton death march. And I was always a little ill at ease around him. He was a big, rugged character, not in service, and I lost 2 sons. I know it never crossed his mind, but it crossed my mind.
Were you from Virginia originally?
Yeah. My home is the little town of Rural Retreat, about halfway between Marion and Whitfield, right on top of the divide. You go up to 3,000 feet in the town. Anyway, 4 times, I applied to the 3rd Service Command, or what it was called, in Baltimore, for getting service on my ability to map reading, because I had gotten interested in soils and learned to read a map just like you'd read the papers in newspapers. Got a real nice letter back. Very sorry that at the present time we do not have any demand. I was thinking about the signature. Demand for such skills. Signed, Bill Jones, 2nd Lieutenant so-and-so. About 6 months later, I sent another application in. Got a letter back, same thing. Very sorry, so forth. Bill Jones, 1st Lieutenant. 6 months later, sent it in again. Letter back, very sorry, Bill Jones, Captain. And the fourth time, this is about 2 years' time, Major Bill Jones. But in the draft, I was very high in the draft. But I was deferred first because it's county agent, county agriculture agent. I don't know if you know the job or not, do you?
Yeah.
And then a year later, I was called up again. I was deferred because of 4F. Then a 42 called up and accepted for full military duty. They were scratching the bottom of the barrel. So I went into the service, and the first thing that happened, I got down to Fort Lee, Virginia, Camp Lee, we called it then, right out of Richmond, and personnel or something. Well, you go to college? Yes. Where? CCI. Where you military? Yes. ROTC? Yes. Did you graduate? Yes. I wasn't volunteering nothing. Going for you in ROTC?
Yes.
Did you get your commission? Yes. Well, what happened to it? They took it away from you. Why? Of course, I'm deaf in one ear. Oh! By the way, here in the drawer here, the War Department circular came through yesterday. Former commissioned officers who have been discharged from service but subsequently drafted will be immediately reinstated, assigned to appropriate duties. Well, that sort of changes my outlook. By the way, I had been commander of a state guard company at Marion when I went into service.
Virginia State Guard?
Yeah, the VPF, I think, Virginia Protective Force.
Right.
We were armed with full choke double barrel shots.
For close work, you can't do better than that.
You can't do better worse than that either. If you fire both barrels at one time, I guarantee you that 190 pounds, it'll knock you down. The full choke will. But anyway, they said, well, when you get to wherever you're sent, and he gave me a copy of that circular, you report to your adjutant as soon as you can. That's per this order. So I went to Fort Bliss, Texas, and signed to ACAC battalion. The first thing that happened in that battalion, the assistant battalion commander was a classmate of mine. The executive officer of the company I was assigned to was in my battery when I was first sergeant. He was a sophomore and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I reported as per the instructions. So I started a long series of interviews with officers' boards and physical exams, and I signed waiver after waiver. And this went on through California. And
What sort of weapons did you have in the
that
anti-aircraft?
was 90 millimeter.
90 millimeter?
90 millimeter. Well, I was in there. I became. See, I went in that outfit in October, and September, I guess it was, and finished the basic training, 60 days or whatever it was, and was immediately assigned to the Plans and Training Staff, Battalion Headquarters, as Plans and Training Sergeant. So in less than 2 months after I went in the Army, I was Staff Sergeant, which normally would have been a Master Sergeant, of course they changed all the ratings now. So we went from there on across to El Paso, to Yuma, Arizona. It's been a winter in the desert there in Arizona, and then went on to San Bernardino, California, out in the desert there in the edge of, out of town a few miles. And we were on full military because they still expected the Japs to hit the West Coast. In the meantime, I'd gone before board after board, and the captain had told me, the battalion commander, he said, now, Sergeant, you're one of the newest men in the battalion, and some of these guys have been here for 2 years, and the move you all went to Master Sergeant after just 4 months, some of them not going to like it. But he said, the minute we head for overseas, you get your rating. I swear to you that half of our battalion had gone, you know where. And the rest of us had struck our tents. We're sitting out in the desert on the railroad siding. The train was in sight. Our baggage had already been dumped into a boxcar. And here came the chief across the desert with orders leaving me behind because of my pending written commission. Anyway, then I went to this big supply depot there in the Cahoon Pass north of San Bernardino and was made Plans and Training Sergeant at Post Headquarters, which was a job that I really had a lot of fun. And I went before boards again. Finally, I got a call one day from the post commander. Said, well, I understand you're an agricultural expert, but sir, that expert word is a little strong, but I was so-and-so. Well, I've just got a directive here to screen your personnel for any folks who have special agricultural background or special training for military government work. And you report to Major so-and-so in Los Angeles.
What had you been doing as Plans and Training Sergeant?
Well, of course, Plans and Training Sergeant means you plan all the training for all that. These are quartermaster outfits, bakery companies, trucking companies, and that sort of thing. No combat troops, but support troops. And to give you an illustration, I remember one baking company. We would prepare at a certain stage of their life. They are supposed to be at this type of training. So we would send out every week training schedule a week ahead of time for a company, the 321 Biscuit Company, or bakery company, what we call it. This we call them biscuit companies, trucking companies, what have you. And I remember one we sent out to this one bakery for rifle range. We knew what was going to happen because we've gone through this many times. I looked out one day and saw Lieutenant so-and-so coming because he's the commander of that company. As major, becomes Lieutenant so-and-so. He disappeared in the restroom. The lieutenant came in. Sergeant, said, is Major Nam around anywhere? Oh, well, he stepped on. I don't know just where he is, Lieutenant. Well, you can help me. What can I do for you? You've got us down here for the next tomorrow morning for a rifle range. What do we do? Go down here to draw some guns and walk, start shooting? Kill everybody in the company? No, you don't quite do it that way. Well, what do we do? Well, I'll tell you what. I'd already made arrangements. I picked up the telephone, called over to ordnance, and they pretended like this was the first they'd heard about it. Reserve so many rifles, so forth, for 321 Bakery Company. They'll pick them up in an hour or two. Okay. Now, Sergeant, Lieutenant, tell you what. You don't go out on the range. You won't go tomorrow at all. You have drivers. And you're scheduled to start that at 10 o'clock in the morning. At 8 o'clock in the morning, you have your 3 or 4 best sergeants meet me at such and such a place. Way down out of sight, you see, where they wouldn't see him. And bring one rifle each. And we'll go over that, and I showed them the nomenclature, how to strip the rifle, how to take care of it, and dry run shoot it. So that next day when they went up there, I just happened to be up there observing, they were experts. And I had more there for it, you shake that. Because the major, that was a game we played with him. We'd see one of them coming, he'd have something. Oh, I'm sorry, Lieutenant, I've got an appointment with the colonel. The sergeant will take care of you. Then we got the shipping units overseas, and I shipped about 50 units overseas. The equipment, the proper packaging, crating equipment, and the proper shipping. And then all of a sudden one day, I reported on that military government thing, agriculture. I reported down to such and such an office at the post office at L.A., 14th floor, and the dang shag rug was that thick. And I talked to the guy. Oh, well, now this will come through very shortly. You'll get that appointment. Well, they waited, and nothing happened. And finally, I had him back down and seen him. Sergeant, you've been turned down. Why? Well, they didn't give you the reason. Well, hell, that's about what I expected in this damn outfit. Oh, now don't feel that way. They have your name on the record, and you'll be getting a call from my bullshit major. You see that? Anyway, then one day, the major said, Sergeant, you're going to Infantry OCS. Me? Yep. Well, I'm so deaf that I can't even qualify in the artillery. What the heck did I want to go to Infantry OCS? I'm just not interested. I'm sorry, the order's already been cut. So I ended up at Fort Benning. 30 years old. The rest of the kids were 21, 22. It was a rough summer. Now, in classwork, I shined. But in the field, I had no infantry experience whatever. These old guys were out of the infantry. So they knew what they were doing. So we got through, and I ended up in the 71st Division then, at the end of school.
This was the summer of
44.
44, okay.
I ended up in the 71st Division. My first job, I was assigned as heavy weapons platoon leader in the rifle company.
Where was the 71st then?
At Fort Benning.
It was at that.
To back up a little bit, they came there in the summer of 44. The paratroopers ruled the roost down there. Oh boy. They didn't let anybody doubt, but they didn't run that show off streets. So here came this outfit from Colorado, the 71st Division. It was a mule pack outfit. In the mountains there, the commanding general didn't even have a jeep. So the first weekend that the 71st boys got leave, not in it yet. Going to town, the paratroopers were going to show them who ran the show. And I think it was 11 paratroopers went to the hospital, but no mule packers went. There was no problems with the paratroopers that day on. Well, I was assigned as a heavy weapons platoon leader. So about the second or third day on the job, I was out with my platoon. The sergeant was running the show, and I was standing back, being eyes.
Like a good new lieutenant.
Yeah. And the battalion commander pulled up. Lieutenant, did I read in your record that you've had some experience at supply? Well, yes, a little bit. As of now, you're my battalion supply officer. Report to Major so-and-so down at Regiment I. So I reported to Major Maynard, I believe his name was, and he talked a little bit. He said, Lieutenant, what are your qualifications for supply work? I thought, well, let's see. 2 and 2 makes 6, doesn't it? That's what I was looking for. Because at Army supply, you're sold everything you get your hands on. In combat, if you steal it, you might cost somebody else's life. The way, of course, I didn't say that. You don't. The American soldiers never steal anything. You understand? So I worked at that job for a while, and one day we were beginning to get hot. We get down close to the end of our training. Getting hot, overseas ship. One day, the Major was sitting there and said, oh gosh, what in the heck do I do? Well, Major, page 44, paragraph 16, subtitle A, says do so-and-so, a POM, preparation overseas movement. He turned over, I thought that's right. And he looked at me, and I never thought about what I was getting into. A couple days later, same thing happened. And the third time it happened, I said, wait a minute, what in the world did you know about it? I shipped about 50 units overseas when I was in the desert that year, about one a week. Oh, well, as of this moment, you are shipping this regiment overseas. I never functioned with a few days as supply officer. Well, it turned out that fall, and the final field problems and so forth, they'd have to call some shavetail from a company somewhere to act as supply officer, and he'd get things all screwed up. And the colonel would get mad. We got on the ship. I think we had just been in France a couple of days, or maybe we were on the way over. I believe on the way over. Got a call one day to report to the battalion commander. Yes, sir. As of this moment, you are platoon leader at 3rd Platoon F Company. Well, what about supply? Well, Lieutenant so-and-so is going to be supply. Well, I went out there with not one day's practical experience as a rifle platoon leader. But fortunately, I had a platoon sergeant who'd been through one of the survivors of Cassell Pass. They weren't many of them. And he'd been through Anzio, and that was a little rough. Back to the States, and that poor bastard was going back to Europe again. I found out that Sergeant McFarland was a good Joe. So I called him in. I told him, Sergeant, I have absolutely I shouldn't be here because of so-and-so, and I've had no troop experience to feel. So I've been told what kind of a guy you are. You're running this platoon. I'm responsible. I'll front for you, but you run it. But now, many of our squad leaders, can I say that too? He said, so-and-so and so-and-so, but not so-and-so. Well, he's a bastard. And he'll cut the props out of my view. So I called in those other two one at a time and talked over with them. And we got along fine. Nobody in the platoon got killed. There was a couple got shot up once or twice. I wasn't even what happened. It wasn't my good luck. It was just pure damn luck. For example, when we came into Reed, Austria, on buses that we picked up along the road, we came riding into town. All of a sudden, somebody jumped up out of the ditch and waved us to stop. And about that time, we heard machine gun fire and started coming in the bus on this side and over here. And I'll swear to you, there was about 50 bullet holes in that bus, and not a soul got touched. There was it turned out it was a bunch of Hitler youth, 14-year-old boys. You know where we fought the battle? In the cemetery. And I'll always remember this Sergeant McFarland. We'd rounded each up. There was one little boy wearing sergeant stripes. He couldn't have been more than 14. And Sergeant Max was about 6'4", 240 pounds, handlebar mustache, a mean looking bastard. He was a big putty cat. And he told this little German boy to ought to do something. And he gave him some lip. The sergeant turned red in the face, and I thought he was going to pop. All of a sudden he smiled, he reached out and grabbed the kid, sat down on a tombstone, pulled his pants down and spanked him until his tail end was as red as that bleeding chair. And the little boy jumped up, he was awfully hard to not cry and to maintain his dignity. He jerked his pants back up and went running off. And the sergeant walked, the most wonderful expression on his face. I said, "Sergeant, why did you do that?" He said, "I couldn't hit the little son of a bitch." Anyway, then, at the end of the war, down in Austria, the colonel, not the battalion, but the regimental commander, who was, he was no good at all. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to name his name. But some of the dumb things that they ever did.
What regiment was that?
This was 66th Infantry.
66th Infantry.
Now, that was a wartime regiment.
Mm-hmm.
14th and the 9th were the oldest regular Army regiments in the Army. But 66 was wartime regiment.
Mm-hmm.
The colonel called us all in. We were still down in Austria, near Steyr, Steyr. Wanted to for an interview. And all second lieutenants in this regiment got promoted one notch, except Steve Cassell and Clyde Tony. And the one thread that was common, he asked every one of those guys a certain question. Do you think you have to be an SO to be a good enough to be an officer? Two of us said no. Me and Clyde Tony. The rest of them gave him the answer they knew he wanted. So, he was promoted. We moved back to Germany in June, I believe it was. It said in that diary.
Before you get back into Germany, I remember you said the 66th, I think it was, liberated a concentration camp.
Yeah.
Where was that?
That was at Lambach, Lambach. It's
in Austria?
Yeah. Right near the city of Wels and Lambach are right there together. It was just a couple miles out of Wels. Do you remember the Prachtenists church? Charlie and Ann Prachtner?
Mm-hmm.
Ann Prachtner was born in Gunskirchen Lager at that place. Of course, there wasn't any concentration camp there. And she came to America when she was about 5 or 6 years old before the war. When we moved back to Germany, to the village of Lauingen, Lauingen, on the Danube, north of Augsburg, I got a call one day to report one of the most interesting experiences I had in the war. Got a call to battalion headquarters one day while we were there at lunch. They said, "Lieutenant, go back and get 3 days' supplies and be back here in 15 minutes. What for? You and 6 men from the battalion are taking a train load of Russians back to Russia. The Russian DPs, of course, they're slave laborers." So we took off. That was a joke. 6 of us to guard 2,000. We were supposed to be there in 3 days. We didn't know where we were going, but it was supposed to be the days. The thing I'll always remember is this one man. You know, you can take 25 strangers and plunk them down in the room, and a couple hours later, 1 or 2 of them will be the leaders. Don't ask me how it happens, but it usually does happen. One of the leaders of that 2,000 was a man in uniform. He was not a soldier. He had taken that uniform off of a dead body somewhere in a prison camp. Well, that man and I sat there in that boxcar for 4 days with our legs hanging out of the boxcar talking. I didn't speak a word of his language. He didn't speak a word of my language. How? I don't know. Shrugs, gestures, smiles, frown, pointing. And I learned, and I'm sure this is correct, that he was from Siberia. He had not opened now. He was a slave laborer from Siberia, and his family lived north of the Arctic Circle, made their living herding reindeer. And I think he understood my job as county agricultural agent. I was jointly employed by the county and the agricultural college to work with the farmers in the county. And we talked for 4 days. Well, it took about 7 days before we ended up at Erfurt, which was in the territory that was being turned back over to the Russians, you know, when that division there, when we gave a lot of it to the Russians after we moved in and taken over. But there was about, go ahead.
Did the DPs resist going back?
No,
or,
they were scared stiff. They didn't know whether they were going to be taken out and shot or sent to the salt mines of Siberia or wherever the prisoners were. They had graffiti in an hour or two. They had graffiti all over those cars to show what good citizens they were and tell the folks back. Anyway, we had 50 babies in the group. 3 days supply of food. So we was getting kind of desperate. It was just about the 4th day. And we were creeping along about 10 miles an hour, stopping every few miles for a little bit. And we noticed this morning this truck was stopping at this farm and pick up a bunch of milk, and then this farm and pick up right along the side of the track, 50 feet away or 100 feet away. We saw him pick up at 4 or 5 places. And we saw it pull up to what obviously was a dairy in this town. We stopped in the town. The train commander came back and said, Lieutenant, we're going to be here 2 or 3 hours. Don't let the people scatter. I said, well, listen, I'm going to have to take a couple of men and go find some food for these babies. So we took this Russian and had a pull-up. Genesevich. You can picture in there. We went up there. And I told him, I need milk for babies. Nichts haben milk, nein. I said, you're a damn liar. We saw your truck, the truck sitting right there. We saw him stop at 8 or 10 farms coming in here load milk. Nein, nichts haben. I said, Jenny, get our friend outside. We left the Russians sitting outside. Of course, this was territory that was going to be turned over to the Russians. We brought him in. Oh yeah, nichts haben milk. Nichts haben pale milk, or whatever the right word is. Just like that. They were scared stiff. They had reason to be. So it's what the Germans did to the Russians was really horrible. But anyway, we were gone then for about 10 days. We didn't have a sign of a piece of paper to show that we were legitimate on that trip when we got back home.
You turned these people over to the army, or
no? We put them into a camp at Erfurt, and all the American troops had pulled out of Erfurt except the MD company, about 150. So the first thing we did when we got there was, hey, that's damn girl and our outfit makes life so miserable. They get reported, and the Russians are coming in 2 days, but they'll keep us for a while. So we'll have some fun and get to know them. So the first thing I did was go down to the MP company and tell them who I am, what I'm doing there. So we won't stay 3 days. Sure, fellas, you come down here and eat with us. Well, we went into a transit hotel and were staying, 7 of us. And we went down to eat dinner at the MP. So one day, the 3rd day, and the next morning, the Russians, they were pulled out and the Russians come in. And we were part of that. So they were our buddies. But at lunch that day, the captain said, Lieutenant, I'm sorry to tell you, but you'll have to be on the freight train going west at 6 o'clock. You guys have to be on, because if you're not, then I'll have to arrest you. So we headed back and took several days to get back home. But anyway...
This was the Russian who said this to you?
No, our MP captain.
Your MP captain.
Said, well, you've got to be out of here before they show up in the morning. Or I'll have to take you in custody. Not long after that, then, I got a call one day to report to Lieutenant Honor at Division Headquarters, the athletic officer. So I get a chief and go up to Augsburg, 50 miles away, and report to Lieutenant O'Connor. Yes, Lieutenant, you're now my assistant athletic officer. Me? No, well, where's the athlete's foot? Well, I don't know, but Roy Long said, good man. So there was 3 of us working for him. They had me, the first job I was given was to rebuild all the sports facilities in town. But here the Germans with pockets full of money, but nothing to do with it. No jobs, their factories blown up and everything. So all these sports facilities, swimming pools and everything was busted with bomb craters and all. So I was to rebuild them. And I had a lot of fun. Of course, you used German labor. And I found out, well, You don't try to boss them. Get one of them to boss them. You tell them boss man what you want and let him handle them entirely. Well, we had a lot of fun. Our softball team with my friend Roy Long as coach was the runner-up to the European Championship. Our baseball team was the runner-up to the championship, and a fellow named Ewell Blackwell from Cincinnati Reds, later on with the Cincinnati Reds, was our star pitcher. And in the playoffs, that's 3 out of 5. He won 2 games, but he pitched the 5th game, and his arm was just gone. Then the football team started. I told O'Connor, I want to play football. Well, all right, well, I want to put you out there to run that athletic center. Well, there was about 100 GIs out there. The football squad, the basketball squad, baseball squad. They weren't doing a darn lick except fiddling around with sports. And I found out right quick, I ain't bossing this bunch. So I just ran the place to hell with it. So I got to play in a couple games, and then they came to ruling that the 36-man squad. I was the 37th man on the 36-man squad. Somebody would be injured, couldn't dress out, I'd get to dress out, and I got to play in a couple of games. But I'm telling you something I heard. That one of the programs somewhere we went to play, it referred to me as a star guard. Sam Bartholomew, does that name mean anything to you? He was blocking back in Tennessee in 38, 39, 40 when they were unscored off for 2 or 3 years. Played the Philadelphia Phillies. He was that bothered the heck out of me. Being a star guard, and he was playing me on the 3rd string. At 25 years after the war, I bumped into Sam in Kingsport one day, which is at our lie. I never did know he was up there until after I retired. But anyway, I tell those people this. Ask him, how come if I was a star, how come I was on the 3rd string? And his answer was, my God, after 25, how do you expect me to remember? Little detail. Oh, I know why. We didn't have a 4th string. Anyway, about 2/3 of the way down through the football season, halfway down, I got a call one day to report to the division adjutant. In the meantime, I've gotten curious. Why the hell didn't I get a promotion? All these jerks that went out here and didn't give a damn about anything, goofed off on everything, got promoted, I didn't get one. So I'd gone to the Inspector General, what do you call him, and talked with him. And a couple weeks later, he called me back and said, he said, come in, I was talking. About why? He said, during that period back at Fort Benning when you were battalion supply officer, the battalion commander rated your performance as unsatisfactory. What? Yeah. God, Colonel, that just isn't so. I never did function as battalion supply officer. I was shipping the regiment overseas. Now I know what happened. These guys, he come in for a problem, and they goof up, and blames it on me. Let me go to my room for a few minutes and come back. I went over and got some letters from the Port of Immigration because I took the regiment through the port. And went on ahead to the advance party and took it all through the port. And I had letters from them saying, you're in better shape than anyone else in the division, and you're in better shape with your records and so forth than 90% of the units to ship overseas. Letter of commendation. On the very period of time that he rated me for unsatisfactory. I said, well, that's too bad. Well, did anything be done about it? He said, no. Why? There's only one person who could change that rating, and that's the colonel. Well, why can't he change it? He went home, and about a week after he got home, he died of pneumonia. So you've had it. So I came out of the service, still a shaved head. But I'm not bitter. I came out with reasonably good health, didn't get blown up and all that. Then I got the call one day through the state the adjutant called me in. I walked in there. The lieutenant said, you are now the division recruiting officer. Who, me? Yes. Of course, I knew him because I'd been there at division headquarters for 4 months already, 5 months. And we all ate together, and they were out of football practice and all that jazz. I go, why in the heck picked on me. He said, well, Lieutenant O'Connor said you were no longer in the athletic office. I said, well, that's flying so-and-so. I've been out at the athletic center, running that athletic center for the last 2 months. I haven't even been in the office. He said, well, too late, you've already been called. General Roth wants to talk with you. So I go to the commanding general. And he was out of football practice every day after practice. I want to know, General, why me? Because I can't, you say my job is to talk to you guys into staying in the Army, and I can't right at this moment. I'm so pissed off, I can't think of any reason why anybody would want to stay in the Army. All due respect to you and your regular Army commission. Why me? He said, well, we needed an officer, a very responsible officer. I went, you got the right guy. What do you mean? The last 3 jobs I've had, anytime something went wrong, they said, Cassell's responsible. So, I told General, look. He said, now, the 3rd Corps wants you to rig up a sound truck and travel around the division, company to company, drive up and down the streets and blaring out the good news about staying in the Army. General, do I have the right to say I don't want to do it? He said, yes, and I'll back you up because I believe in that kind of salesmanship either. He said, the first thing I want you to do is just write a bulletin. And that was this one. A thought had crossed my mind. Can we make that joke out a little bit? Well, he said, go ahead, but let me see what it is before we have it printed. And that's what we came up with.
It's a good piece.
Anyway, well, I like that one. 3 years, whatever it is. No, that's not the one. But this one here. If you're enlisted for 3 years, you got a month vacation home and your choice of theater. Anyway, I went, General, can I still play football? Do you think you can handle out and play football? I believe I can. Well, if you can, fine. Then I'll work at this until noon and go to football. So, go out to football practice, and of course they all knew that I was now a recruiting officer. And some little book private would knock the hell out of me. And this is what we do as recruiting officers, try to get me to stay in this man's army. One day it was pouring down rain and mud was that deep and it was all over us and we were scrimmaging. General Roth was standing over there. And somebody knocked the hell out of me and I got up. General Form said, come here. Oh, yes, sir. Are you crazy? Why? He said, you got a nice warm office, dry office up there that compared. What are you doing out here? Well, I guess I'll just hit 2 at a time on the head. So that's pretty what it is. Then I went down to at the end of the football season. We won the European Championship. Not me. We won the European Championship. Of course, we killed a bear, but Paul shot him. That's the joke we used to have as boys. We killed a bear. Of course, Paul shot him. Then Sam sent me down to Riviera to line up a game as a reward for the team for winning the championship. Had a game lined up. Some team down there. And he called me on telephone. See, one of the reasons we won was we weren't hit by redeployment. So the Army, it disintegrated because they wouldn't don't send anybody back home over here, but bring Daddy back home. Don't send anybody over to take his place. 100 miles away, the Russians were bringing in new divisions all the time. We couldn't have slowed them down 5 minutes if they'd wanted to come to the Atlantic, to North Sea. So he said, all of a sudden, we lost half the football team, gone home, including coach, including me. He said, and we decided not to come because we come down and get the hell beat out of us. So then I get back to Germany, and 1st of January, I go down to Biarritz, way down in the very southwest corner of France, next to Spain, to an Army university, and I spent 3 months down there. While I was there...
What were you working on down there?
Just studying. I took a course in soils, one in geology, preparation for marriage, and an agronomy seminar course. And while we were there, the division broke up. The 4th and the 5th Regiment were assigned to other divisions. The 66 came home, I guess. Not a one of us. There was a couple of hundred of us down there from the 66, and not a one of us got any orders what to do. So I just went back to Augsburg. And to skip around, I got assigned to the 14th Regiment, over at Weinheim, right near Mannheim. Mm-hmm. And of course, I had some friends over there. And he said, well, you are ammunition officer. Ammunition officer? Heck, the shooting's over, man. Yeah, but there's thousands of tons of ammunition lying out here in these woods in this area. Your job is to locate it, catalog it, destroy it. Who, me? Well, no, you won't have to. Train teams of German ordnance people who were doing that. So I was assigned a sergeant in a jeep. We'd take the map. I'd say, now tomorrow, Sergeant, we'll go block this patch of woods right here. There was an element of risk because some of those ammo dumps out there were mined. So we'd take off, get out there, we'd plot it down and inventory it, and about noon we'd end up in the beer house, Gasthaus, and eat and drink beer, and just have to rush back home and come roaring up in a cloud of dust to the office at quitting time. Captain, we found a soldier right here in this patch of woods. I got a superior rating, and all I did out of that 4 weeks was 20 pounds for drinking beer.
Nice way to spend the winter.
Mm-hmm. And then from there I came on home, and come home in May, and got married in July and went back to work at my old job in August.
What sort of other things was the division doing in occupation duty besides sorting out ammunition?
Well, I don't really know. We were just guarding the towns, and I know in the little town of Lauingen, we were trying to think of things to do to get the people to work. And one of the first things we did, it wasn't purely ulterior
altruism.
I don't know what the word is. Their local brewery to get it back in operation. Of course, we had a purpose. We wanted to be there, but to get maybe 100 people to work. Mm-hmm. And I remember my company ended up in Oberammergau, the Passion Play. And one of the things they told me, and I went down there occasionally and spent a weekend with it or something like that, and I fell in love with that town and beautiful pictures of it. One of the things they did is let's revive the Passion Play. You know what they discovered? The man who played the role of Christ in the 1940 Passion Play was the chief Nazi in town. He was in Nuremberg prison waiting to be out. And so nothing was done. I don't think it was revived until 50. Mm-hmm. But
did you have much to do with German civilians?
Well, I didn't, because in the job I had, I didn't have that much contact with them.
Yeah.
Now, the only zero contact I had was on that job rebuilding the sports facilities. Mm-hmm. And the one little example, I don't mean this bragging, but this did happen, and I showed you the pictures of it in here. One Sunday, we had about 2,000 or 3,000 GIs standing around the sidelines watching the football game. And that night at the officers' club, Sam and I were sitting there with some of the other officers off the team. There was probably 10 officers, and the rest of them were different. Gosh, it would be wonderful. Seats of people. Cassell, see what you can do about it. Well, I happened to have with me who was the commander of an engineering company. And I got to talk with him. He said, oh, we're in luck. Let's go back to our room, to my room. We go over to his room. He said, we just took over yesterday a big sawmill. We don't have a job to be working on. So we thing, you know, the support pieces that the seat could sit on, the support pieces down here, and the braces, and throughout the sketches, so each one of them in its size. He said, now tomorrow at 1 o'clock, you have 4 trucks and 20 carpenters at this place at the sawmill. I'll swear to you, the next Saturday we seated about 8,000 guys. We built the stadium.
Wash out there.
No,
You're responsible.
I found
Cassell
out.
do it.
I found out one thing. I went to the burgomaster. I need 20 carpenters. Bring hammers. That's all. Everything else was furnished. And I'll have the trucks here at such and such a time to pick them up. We got out there, and I was getting nowhere. And then I heard one of them, you know, tell us what to do. And I talked to him, and he spoke a little English. You know what we want to do? Yeah. All right, you get it done. And he bossed it. And boy, when he started bossing it, it was like that. They started clicking. They are wonderful workers. Really wonderful workers. They don't have, at that time, we didn't think they had too much imagination or individual initiative. But today, of course, quality-wise, they're superior to us. Industrial workers, I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Did you have much of a problem with fraternization policy?
Everybody's proud. Well, during the actual shooting, yes. Mm-hmm. It was forced, but after the shooting was over, there wasn't a problem. You got to remember, there was about 5 or 7 million women of marriageable age with no man. Do I need to say any more than that? I know I was telling my wife, and my wife-to-be, about this dental captain, original dentist, what it was. I was a dentist there, I think it was, at Feinheim, that a couple months before I came home, that he had this German girl living with him, and she was a dental technician, and one of the most charming ladies I've ever met. And Beth said, how could she be charming? She's living the man she's not married to. I said, you would have to be under circumstances to understand it. She was a charming lady. She fooled with no one else except him. But you got to remember, there was about 5 or 6 men that had no men and no place to get any. One whole generation that was lost. But I don't know what would happen to me if I was under those circumstances. Oh, I wouldn't break down like that. I don't know, would or not. I think about some of the guys that broke down under the torture in Korea. I've never had the screws put on me. I don't know how much of it I can take. So, when I got back home, went back to the county, after I got back, I was the last county agent in Virginia to come back and search. 150 of us. Most of whom were commissioned. And I was the last one to come back. And all the training schools, refresher schools and all, the tech had already had them all. There's just one more wandering around out there. He's not worth it. Well, at Marion, then I was a member of the Lions Club. And we had, about a month after I got back, they could speak about my more experiences. And I thought, coming up this way, with all the horrible destruction, physical, property, I still thought the social implications were much worse than the physical implications. What happened to the minds of man? The concentration camp is something, when we walked in on that one, that's something, yes, I believed it, and yet I didn't really believe it until I saw it. You saw the pictures, how horrible those are. And when I show those to audiences, I've had some of them say, why did you have to throw in horrible pictures like that? Because they're horrible. And we must never forget man's inferior to man. Oh boy, I can get fancy with that phrase. And don't let it say it can't happen again, because it has happened. It's happening right now. Kuwait. And my God, look at what's happening in some of the countries of Africa. And that flaming torch groups in Peru.
Shining Path, yeah.
Shining Path, yeah, Shining Path. not long ago I was reading, say, Beth and I were in Ayacucho a few years ago. It was our daughter and her husband who were living down there. We spent a couple nights in Ayacucho. And a story in the paper not too long ago that they stopped a group of farm men when the children on the way home from the market and killed 30 of them, left them lying there in the road. I don't know what the objective is. So I've just about run out on that. I don't know.
Did Germans who were around that concentration camp that you all liberated deny that they knew it was there, or did that?
They denied it, but we knew they were lying. But they denied it up here because they didn't want to believe it. This lady that Beth and I visited when in 1987, we were members of a group called the Friendship Force. And in 87 we went to Hamburg and we stayed a week in this lady's home. And of course she was only about 10 years old at the time. And she said, well, as I understand it, those people who tried to voice opposition to it ended up dead. And I listened to a program yesterday which they said that approximately 750,000 Germans were put to death by Hitler because they opposed him. So they were trapped in this endless system that they couldn't break out of. I remember as we were that rat race across Germany, we'd come to a town and we'd search out the houses, looking for weapons and for SS troopers and so forth. But the Bürgermeister in Knoxville, nicht stopping Knoxville, next town, viel Knoxville, many Knoxville, and next town, we get over the next town, nine, this town, many Knoxville, SS troopers, but none in our town. And I remember the shop came into the town of Newhouse. And there on the railroad across the trestle were about 4 poles that were hanging there for the neck. So I think they were poles. They didn't answer when we asked them what they was. But I remember another shop that was...
Who had hung him, do you know? Or?
The SS
Yes,
troopers at the end. We had a number of cases, guard Gestapos that we captured from their own people. We had to guard against, protected from their own people. I remember in the early days of the war, Germany was reduced down as many as a train for mule carts. And the Air Force had strafed the supply column. We came along and found dozens of horses with their guts blown open. The dead soldiers lying there didn't bother us at all, because they supposedly knew better, but those poor horses didn't know any better. They didn't know what they were doing. They were just following, you know.
When you came back to Virginia, did you have the feeling that things had changed at home while you'd been gone?
No, I don't know that I did. I'll tell you one thing that bothers me a little bit right now. I have to say, I didn't get in any bad fighting, just a few skirmishes. The first day I found out I was cut out to be a lover instead of a hero. I didn't like that. And the guy that says he goes into combat is not scared, he's either crazy or a damn liar. Now, it bothers me a little bit that all this, I feel so sorry for the Vietnam veterans. They're the only ones that have apparently had to fight a war. Of course, I'll go to my grave convinced the press and the media cost us that war. Now, you're about to have been at that age then, but you may disagree with me, and that's your privilege. But that's why I think that thing, a different view of war, of Bill Hawkins, is a good one. Somehow or another, fighting the communists in Vietnam was wrong. It's correct to fight them everywhere else, but not in Vietnam. That's roughly what he says there. But we made a mistake. We didn't go in to win. That's the mistake we made. And in combat, there is no order. All your plans go haywire. Because regardless of how good your plans are, there's somebody on the other side that's doing everything he can to disrupt them.
He's got his own plans.
So, snafu is a normal situation. Situation normal, all fouled up. Only in the Army we use a little different word than foul. My best friend, this fellow Roy Long, and I, when we separated at Christmas of 45, and I went down to Biarritz, and then I didn't see him again until last year. He ended up in the foxholes in Korea. But we both agreed, I wouldn't do it again for $1 million unless Uncle Sam asked me. And I wouldn't take $1 million for the experience. And I guess I'm oversimplifying things when I say that if there's anything good in combat, this, the veneer is scratched off and you find out what the man is underneath. Find out what the real man is underneath. And in a platoon, for example, when the pinch is down, the blowhard never lives up to it. It's a little quiet guy that you never thought anything about, that didn't even know he was there, was the one that comes through for you. I mean, that's a generalization, of course. I don't know. A strange thing, too, maybe, I don't recall having any animosity towards the German soldiers. The SS troopers and the Gestapo, that's another story now. But the German individual soldier, he was just as scared, and he was trapped in the system as part of it, and had no control over his destiny. But some of the things that the Gestapo and SS troopers did is that concentration camps we found. I think, did I tell you about coming into town the next day? The day after we camped, we pulled into Wells. And the company commander said, Cassell, take your platoon and clear those warehouses over there. Simple order. Those warehouses covered about two blocks. High wall fence around it. They were full of food, cereals. Two canals ran under it, under the fences. Well, we went in, and the SS and Gestapo, this Gunskirchen lager was about 2 or 3 miles out of town. They had pulled out, left that camp 3 or 4 days before we got there. The folks hadn't had anything to eat for several days. Many of them, of course, were so near dead, and we found hundreds of dead bodies, as you saw in that book. Many of those folks were in town, in Strasbourg. The population were in their homes with the doors locked, but they were scared, and had reason to be. Although they say they weren't Germans, they were Austrians. But it's the truth of that too now. So Hitler forcefully took over Austria. Anyway, there were hundreds of those prisoners in those warehouses, and they were wallowing in the stuff. And they were indescribably filthy. Now, no fault of their own. Suppose you were penned up in 10-foot square and never got out. You'd be sleeping in your own crap. No fault, indescribably filthy. Well, they were just ruining the food that they touched with their body. So we'd walk into a room, maybe it'd be 50 feet long, one door on the end. I'd yell at them, nobody listened. My Rab, or RAWB, with their automatic rifle. I'd cut with he'd take his rifle and mow it around the wall above their heads. Well, in a closed room, automatic rifle makes a little noise. And we put a couple men at the door and drive them out. Anything they had out of sight, we didn't take away from them. But in boxes, no, we did. And they couldn't understand. Now, there was everything there but Americans. There were no Americans in that group. But you're treating us just like the SS troopers. You're taking the food away from us. And we tried to explain to them in our broken English that you are running the food. We're trying to save them. Okay, during the night, the stronger of the patients would dive under the fence in those canals and come up under the fence and get inside. So about every hour we would send them around each of the buildings to search it out, and they'd find 4, 5, or 6 people each time. We'd push them outside. I walked up to one of my outposts about 3 o'clock in the morning, And this big old German boy from a farm in Minnesota named Core. Hey, Lieutenant, come here, something funny to show you. And I walked up, and there were 3 SS troopers lying there dead. They hadn't been there an hour before. Yeah, what is it? Said, this Ruski marched these guys up here going to pistol point and broke in English, said, I got these SS troopers. What do I do with them? Oh, shoot son of bitches. Bang, bang, bang. We stood there and I watched him walk off in the dark. That story, we were so darn mad, you know, finding that camp and what had happened there. That story got all over the division. It seemed like in 10 minutes. And I'll swear to you that the next few days that seemed to be the password. Oh, shoot son of a bitch. Crude, cruel, the soldier's humor is usually point. And the mood we were in, that's the way we felt. And I think I can truthfully say, had we found that camp 8 weeks before, we were only in on that last 8 weeks. If we'd have found that camp 8 weeks before, we wouldn't have captured 150,000 German soldiers. We shot a hell of a lot of them on the spot because we were so darn mad about it. But
How large a camp was it?
about 18,000 details in that book, I think. And we found hundreds of dead bodies lying around the woods. And there's some wonderful stories, you know, the prisoners on this. We brought in a bunch of SS troopers. We're holding them for trucks to haul them off the prison camp. And made us stand at attention there in the square. And there was hundreds of these prisoners standing around the sidewalks, sitting around, lying around. And I am really more or less quoted when I that the Gestapo, when they made us stand at attention, and they had that superior leer on their at the beginning. But 2 hours later, of course, they would. Have you ever tried to stand at attention for 2 hours? it ain't fun. They were beginning to look.
A little uneasy, were they?
Because they knew it was over. And I think that also we can see in those prisoners that were on the sidewalk, the opposite thing happened. 2 things I'll always remember about that concentration. The first one is the smell of death. And the other one is the fact that the eyes of those prisoners, they were blank. We're like them. They're dead. And perhaps as they stood there and watched the SS troopers go down, that perhaps a little something began to show up in their eyes. I'd like to be a poet to be able to describe it. But, well, God help us all. We never have to do it again, and yet we've got a character, and Iraqi is just as bad as Hitler was. And I hope that something is done about it before it boils. We got to stop him. We can't just let him get out of it, because have you ever given in to a bully yet that he didn't ask for more than? It's a good thing I don't know if they haven't got me running the show, because I'd really run it around. But in my old age now, and my superior wisdom, I have reduced the problems of the world to 2 simple little equations, if I've used terms. The first one is that everybody else ain't as smart as you and I are. And the second is that some damn fools disagree with us, we get along fine.